Hi there, and welcome to week 3 of Tapping into Higher Consciousness. I'm your host, Helen McConnell. In this week's lesson, we're going to be diving in a bit about learning how to align with your innermost being, your divinity. What does it feel like? We're going to learn practical tools to find and maintain alignment and why it's important. This is where you really learn to stop doing everything on a physical level. Do less, accomplish more is one of my favorite sort of phrases, sort of mantras. In this session, we'll focus on rising beyond level 1 consciousness. And I just feel compelled to reiterate that rising beyond level 1 consciousness is not a physical doing kind of thing. It's raising our awareness, releasing old ideas and our attachments to old beliefs. And there are many names for higher consciousness, such as soul, source, inner being, love, God, life force, universe, the all knowing, infinite love, infinite intelligence, and whatever else you want to call it. You have access to it now because you are it. You are higher consciousness. It is you. It's not something that is separate from you or out there. We're just releasing our resistance to aligning with our higher consciousness. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples so your brain can open to aligning with higher consciousness. First, I'm going to use mathematics as an example. When we're in level 1 consciousness, we get to 25 by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so forth, just like you did when you learned how to count. And when we move to level 2 consciousness, we begin to realize that we can add our way to 25. We can go 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 25. And that's our higher awareness of how mathematics works. But, we had to learn how to count first, most of us. And then as you got a little older and you did more math at school, you began to learn how to multiply, that you could take 5 times 5 equals 25. And once you got that down, the whole multiplication thing, you didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to think of it in pictures of 5 times 5 equals 25. You just knew it. And then finally, in mathematics, and this certainly isn't the highest level of mathematics, but you learned how to make exponential numbers. 5 squared equals 25. This is very much like our consciousness. And at some point, you will raise yourself to level 2 consciousness or level 3 or level 4, and you won't have to think about it. But as you get there, you may have to learn the basics and move your way up. Memorize, if you will, muscle memory. And just remember that each level is still math, but each level is so much more powerful than the level before. And now we're going to use this example. The other day, I was putting together a pot of dal, which is an Indian dish that I like to make, and I was making it in my crock pot. I put in all the ingredients and the liquid and turned on the pot. And an hour later, I went to check on it, and the pot was cold. Nothing was cooking. I had forgotten to plug in the pot into the outlet on the wall. When we go through life disconnected from our higher consciousness, it's much like this analogy: no power, no current. No matter how much I had planned and prepared, without the power, without source, my meal wasn't going to be created. And no matter how much you say you want something, you need that life force energy, the higher consciousness, divine, flowing through you to get things going. You are the crock pot, your desires are the ingredients, and higher consciousness is the electricity or the power. When you add the power of higher consciousness, your desires practically create themselves once it becomes habit. All right, and here's another idea I want to impart to all of you, and that is this: that your potential is always greater than your perceived problems. I want to repeat that because it's important. Your potential is always greater than any perceived problems you face. Higher consciousness is where your potential is waiting for you, calling you. So if you're in the midst of a problem, know that it is showing you your greater potential in some area of your life. You just have to be willing to look and know how to. This is a diagram I created to show this thought about potential. So right here in the middle is your perceived problem. And you can insert something in there right now, something that's going on in your life that's your perceived problem. And the thing that holds it there, that keeps you from your potential, is your thinking about your perceived problem. And you note I use the word perceived. And once you can step beyond that and say, what is this problem wanting to show me? You step into your more potential self. And I'd like you to think about this as you are here with your perceived problem, and you're thinking about your problem as like a brick wall surrounding you, a circular wall. The wall only goes up just slightly above your head and it has no ceiling on it. But when you're in there, it feels like you're stuck in there. So I'm going to invite you to look up and over that wall into this area of potential. And when you look into the area of potential, you're almost immediately exposed to greater thinking, expanded thinking. And once you get there, when you start doing this, you can then move beyond this greater thinking into this greater potential. Where can I envision myself going? That's this greater potential here. And this outer circle is the influence of infinite intelligence, infinite potential. And we want to eventually, as we get into level 4 consciousness, break down this exterior circle completely so that it doesn't really even exist. I've attached a PDF of this exercise to this lesson. And if you're ready to grow, you'll want to examine your perceived problems and learn from them. You will likely be called to change your thinking, help someone to grow, to transform, surrender, etc. Dig down into your courage and grab your willingness to do this exercise. So one of the reasons that we want to do this work is to take our uncontrolled thoughts and emotions, which is the image on the left here on your screen. It's like a tangled up ball of yarn, if you will. It's all tangled up and means really nothing when it's like that. It isn't of much use. And when we become aligned with our source, we create much more of the image on the right, this carefully woven, beautiful example on the right, where we are aligned, we're not in contradiction with our source. And why would you want to do this at all is because you desire to be, do, or have more, which is natural. Higher consciousness wants us to be, do, have more. You desire to have a greater impact on humanity and the planet. You desire to see things in a whole new way. You desire to raise the collective consciousness, and you can access all those things from a higher perspective, a higher awareness. So I want you to know that what you currently know and believe may be half truths or downright lies and are perhaps holding you down. So as we go through this program, and I invite you to release your emotional attachments to old beliefs and old thoughts, you can take them back if you want, but I encourage you to let them go for a minute or two, or a day or a week, and see what happens. You can always take them back. We're so afraid of letting go for a minute of what we think is creating us, and the freedom in letting go is profound. Okay? It's important to trust your innermost higher guidance and know that if your guidance is fearful, judging, shaming, or causing you to feel guilty, telling you you're unworthy, etc., it's not your higher guidance. If, however, your innermost guidance is loving you and others, drawing you into inspired action, moving you into better and better feelings, then that likely is your higher guidance or innermost being. And this is your journey. Remember that most of humanity is still living from level 1 consciousness. So most people are not on the same path. Stick to your path. Don't try to coerce or cajole them into joining you. This doesn't mean that you can't connect with them, but if you do, it may be a different experience than what you're used to. And other people may be uncomfortable with where you're at, and they might want to try to cajole you or coerce you into getting on their track. Stay connected to your innermost being and do it with love. Say no with love. You can connect and align. You can use some of these steps and more. These are practical things you can do to align with your innermost being. You can start by approaching it from your intellect. Ask yourself, is this how I want to be and feel? Are these thoughts and words and behaviors coming from level 1 consciousness? If so, can I let them go? And here's an idea. Start by turning your thought to its opposite. For example, if you say to yourself or to others, I'm so mad about how they treated me, you can turn that around to, I wonder what this is showing me. What is this wanting me to bring forth from higher consciousness? Or you could even say, this hurt feeling is an old story and I'm ready to let it go. Okay? It is an old story, I promise you. If something someone says hurts your feelings, it's an old story. I invite you to learn to sit quietly in daily meditation. 10 to 20 minutes once or better twice per day is ideal. Remember the behaviors, the thoughts that are level 1 consciousness. Resistance, blame, complaining, arguing, defensiveness, the I'm right, they're wrong mentality in all of its forms. Trying to control situations and outcomes or trying to control others. And rage is a level 1 consciousness emotion. In a nutshell, if it's not coming from a place of love, it is level 1 and not in the highest good of all concerned. Love does not require that you become a doormat or not set boundaries. And I'm talking about divine love, not romantic love. It usually doesn't work this way. In fact, when you set boundaries and stand up for yourself and others, it is very loving. I want you to practice that. In the next few days and weeks, begin to notice where you're already moving up the scale of consciousness. Even if you're just aware things are shifting and changing, that's huge. You've lived a lifetime unaware of which level of consciousness you're in or that these levels even existed. If you make any change at all, it's going to be profound. I really look forward to seeing you on the next call. And you can bring your questions and your tapping. We will work through that together. See you on Tuesday.